It's time to get cozy, everyone, because we're going to have a fireside chat with none other than Bobby Kotick. Also, Mike Ybarra has talked a bit about the company. We've got the situation going on with Raven and an Overwatch 2 developer very much calling out the leadership of Bobby Kotick, essentially alleging significant interference with the Overwatch team's operations that allegedly is, well, part of why Overwatch 2 is bloody late, to say the very least. So let's hop into the news, Matt. Right, first up, Bobby Kotick's Fireside chat. It's another week, which means there's an absolute deluge of Activision-Blizzard stuff. So Bobby Kotick has came along to do what he does and shift the entire headline narrative. So instead of working away at the Xbox by Activision-Blizzard for $70 billion, and Bobby Kotick will remain CEO throughout the transition angle, we now get to discuss whether or not Bobby is completely fed up with everything. And there's a few of the, I forget what outlet it was, but the news interviews with Bobby, there was one with Bobby and Phil Spencer. And Phil was just being there like, I am a gaming executive, I am charismatic, I am going to talk to this camera and it will look good. And Bobby kind of looks super uncomfortable and dead inside. It's kind of makes you think there's a little bit more going on under the surface. So, Kotick recently announced plans to address Activision-Blizzard employees at an all-hands meeting to discuss the acquisition. This video conference was entitled Fireside Chat, and it was intended to be a fairly casual and informative discussion of the future of the company and how life would be for the employees during the transition. Even if they think the transition is going to be good for them, there still is going to be a lot of uncertainty. As an example, would Activision-Blizzard maybe want to pare down an department to make the acquisition a bit more friendly? People have all these legitimate concerns. Now, it was only supposed to be a 30-minute meeting. I guess we did work out roughly how much Bobby gets compensated in an hour, so...
Oh, Jesus, yeah.
And it was really supposed to be putting those employee concerns at bay. Now, the people, of course, would have questions over job safety, things like that. You think about the Versailles office going, and you're like, well, they don't have development resources in France, in really the EU that much. The Versailles office of Blizzard goes away. Does that look more attractive to Microsoft when it comes to acquiring the company? Does that mean it's a more simplified operation? There's a lot of things like this that employees in a company will be thinking. Now, one of the really good things that Mr. Kotick could have done is turn up to this important meeting about employee concerns on time. So, he didn't turn up on time, and he actually didn't stay for the whole meeting. So according to this report from the Washington Post, which is citing staff who were present at this meeting, Mr. Kotick was 7 minutes. He showed up 7 minutes into the 30-minute meeting, and then he wrapped it up early. In total, they got about 16 minutes of elusive answers and vague assurances, which basically caused more concern than they actually addressed. There was no live chat, and the video didn't show any other participants. The employee questions were read by the Chief People Officer, Julie Hodges. So, in this, look, maybe Bobby Kotick is just such an effective CEO that he was able to squeeze a whole 30 minutes of quality discussion into 16.
For someone who's worth hundreds of millions, you'd expect, the values there. He can get his points across really quickly.
Yeah, 16 minutes.
Time efficient, yeah.
That's what, 12 grand, 15 grand of Kotick time?
Jesus.
That's pretty big, isn't it? Okay, maybe that's overblowing it, but it's certainly, I think it's certainly thousands, though. So, he assured employees that, quote, the transition is going to be smooth because Microsoft is committed to trying to retain as many of our people as possible. The word trying here could be an issue, and this, of course, made employees suspicious of incoming layoffs. So that's not great.
Yeah, you have to think about it, in terms of the amount of employees the amount of overlap, because obviously Microsoft's a games publisher, has that division. Activision have the games publishing division. You're like, well, do you need people to do the same job? The answer, I think, if you look at Bethesda, is largely going to be yes, because it's just, Activision will still publish games as Activision. Microsoft will publish games as Microsoft. You imagine the same way Bethesda are honoring their commitments with the PlayStation platforms of the Tango game, Ghostwire, and then with Deathloop. I think you can see how there's definitely suspicion, but I think hopefully it goes okay.
Yeah. I mean, ultimately for this, I think if somebody is in a, what you could maybe traditionally call a core development role, that's exactly what Microsoft wants. They're probably doing this as part of a talent acquisition, right? They want those development resources, so those people will be fine. But I'd say the people who are more in those supportive roles, which, I mean, more often should really be considered development roles, because they do make, they make the development that is the more like hands on the keyboard, I'm literally making the game. They actually make that bit possible. Yeah. But some of those people, maybe they're going to be a bit more worried. Maybe the community support, maybe QA, CS, things like that. So there's concerns. We'll have to see. Now, Activision-Blizzard, obviously, they were doing a lot of optimizing their headcount for maximum revenue beforehand, which obviously has got people a bit worried. Now, Bobby did joke that employees would not be shifted over to Microsoft Teams. Obviously, people might be worried that something like that would happen, but given what Microsoft are doing, I'd be, extremely surprised. Now, this deal supposedly came about because Microsoft deeply admired Activision-Blizzard and wanted to start investing in the metaverse. I think that this is showing us that there are metaverse plays within Activision-Blizzard, and as I said in a previous video, if I were a betting man, I think that there is probably, with a very modern, approachable, vibrant, colorful art style, some form of metaverse play in development at one of the, like the spearheading a new project units at Blizzard. I think that's where a metaverse play would come from this company. Bobby's sitting here saying wanted to, start investing in the metaverse. I mean, World of Warcraft is not going to have some of the things that companies want from the metaverse from a business perspective.
Yeah.
So it's not going to be World of Warcraft. They're evidently working on some sort of massively multiplayer thing.
Yeah, I guess that's probably a fairly big fear then. If they're working on some, new massively multiplayer, like, you can say, well, it's an MMO. Is it an MMORPG or is it an MMORPMV?
It's an MMMRPG.
Yeah, so is it going to keep its flavor as a game? Or is all this metaverse stuff going to infect it and it's going to start looking a lot like, hey, we're really ramping up the social aspects because we, sure, there are 3 billion gamers and we want to approach all of them, as opposed to going deep into, hey, here's a core gamer product that's a game.
Yeah.
I guess that's one of the things that I'm kind of a little bit worried about with this metaverse stuff.
I have a feeling, though, that whatever developers are working in this project, they probably pretty decently want to make an MMO.
Yeah.
I think look, if it's a metaverse thing, that could be fine. I mean, you can say, VR chat is the metaverse, or whatever. Second Life is the metaverse. But I think where the developers would start to be worried is when the business side of that comes in. Now, Bobby did dodge commenting on whether he would remain CEO. He said it's a company that he's been here for 31 years. There's nothing more important to me other than my children than this company. Can tell you my commitment to the company is to remain in my role once the deal closes. What I've committed to Microsoft is I will stay as long as is necessary to ensure we have a great integration and a great transition. Now, while that is a dodge, it is certainly not saying, and I look forward to working with Phil Spencer for the extended future as we chart the new, whatever of this company.
Yeah, I think that's...
So that's almost an admission.
Yeah, it's really fun to read into statements like that and go, what's he not saying? I think that's a great point.
Yeah, and from what we understand from Washington Post, a lot of optimism going on about this Microsoft deal at Activision-Blizzard. There's obviously worry from a lot of consumers, and I'm sure lots of staff about all those antitrust concerns and things like that. But I think for the staff, it's generally being seen as quite good. I've heard a lot of tales of people asking around their personal, their professional network and hearing good things about how Microsoft runs their ship. But people are still wary of Kotick. Obviously, one employee said, all the fear and anger felt is still tied up in Bobby Kotick and what harm he will inflict until the torch is passed to Microsoft. We could have read a press release and slept an extra 15 minutes. So not particularly great. So that's Bobby's Fireside Chat. I hope you enjoyed that nice, cozy experience. Next time, let's talk about Mike Ybarra's pledge to fans. And I think this is one that really we can kind of rocket through.
Yeah.
Just because of the nature of it. So, Mike Ybarra is coming in, doing some talk, basically saying to the fans, to the players, I think less fans now, our top priority now and in the future is the work we are doing to rebuild your trust in Blizzard. Now, there's basically ongoing talk about, tripling the size of the compliance and investigation teams, all of that stuff. And just so people understand, look, when you have like legit thousands of people at a company, you can't only have developers, community managers, like you can't only have the people who are making the thing.
Yeah.
You do have to have people that are there running the corporation, because if the corporation is not ran smoothly, then it won't be running a good work environment for the people making the game. What that leads to is delayed products for me and Matt and you, and worse products. So, if shit doesn't get solved because they haven't investigated in those teams, like what this could mean is, let's just say some bad stuff goes down that, obviously is awful, but also would get in the way of development and core business operations, and they don't actually have the capacity to deal with that problem. The problem won't be dealt with. So therefore it'll fester, development will be less efficient, it'll drag everything down. So, they're putting resources into that. Now, also, he did mention that he said next week, but it is this calendar week, as this video is published, that he will be sharing updates in the future regarding game products. He did mention that basically one of the things they know they have to do is to ship more content.
Indeed.
We will just have to wait and see what that is.
Yeah, I think he also mentioned they need to innovate more within their games, and not just within their games as in like, World of Warcraft needs to innovate more, but their overall outlook or output needs to innovate more. So I'm wondering if they'll maybe have something, maybe even if it's just a little teaser. I'm kind of expecting them to do something to kind of go, we have things in store that are not Overwatch 2 and Diablo 4. Please believe us. We have to show you some vague proof.
Yeah.
Here's a tease. I at least hope so.
They do.
So
they do.
Yeah, they do. So they need to show it to us. Like
everyone in and around this knows they fucking do. Yeah. Everyone knows. Yeah, so they have things, and obviously some of those are mobile, some of those are not mobile, but they do have things.
Yeah. So my hope is that they have the sense to show it. To show whatever they've got, even if it is literally here's some key art, or here's a synopsis from one of the unannounced projects that we're hiring. Yeah, something like that's all you need.
I think about BioWare. They obviously know they're in the shitter, but when it came to Mass Effect 4, they did their big concept art thingy. Yeah. They've, so, they're doing the likes of that. Even look at Ubisoft, another embattled company, where they almost reminded me a tiny bit about Neuralink. Because Neuralink, they had Elon doing the showcase of the pigs and everything, and it was very much talent acquisition drive. They were just trying to drive more job applicants. And with that Ubisoft Splinter Cell thing, it's like, okay, from what we understand, was it from Tom Henderson? I forget exactly, but I forget which one. Maybe I think it was VGC. But, that they were having team problems, attrition problems, stuff like that. So not only are they saying, hey, we're going to do this, but they're doing that in a way that's like, and apply for a job now. And I think if I was Blizzard Entertainment, what am I thinking? Well, we're not hot shit. Developers are going to be going to Riot. They're going to be going to other companies. There's VC money literally everywhere. Okay, what do we need to do? We need to get people excited by kind of teasing the sorts of things we're going to be working on. Get that talent.
Of course, yeah.
So it'll be interesting. The next thing then on the docket today, Raven Software.
Yep. They are absolutely, I think it's such an interesting move to show good faith to a company you're in such trouble with by, ending the strike. But also at the same time, it's like, how do you respond if you're Activision? How do you respond?
In the words of Neil Cicerega, bustin' feels good.
Indeed.
All right, so what's been going on. The QA department at Raven was basically, trying to be formally recognized as a union. 78% of eligible workers voted in favor of unionization. Shortly after this, after announcing this union, the workers called off their strike action, right? Now, members of the QA team, alongside other Activision-Blizzard workers acting in solidarity, had actually been striking since December 2021. When Activision-Blizzard laid off, of course, 1/3 of QA following a 5-week period of overtime and crunch. Yes, it turns out the light at the end of the tunnel could be an oncoming train.
Yeah.
Activision-Blizzard had originally informed staff that they were working on a pay restructure to increase wages. And some of that actually did happen, which was a good thing, but obviously some people were hit by that train.
Yeah, I'll give them some benefit of the doubt of this is it was a large number of staff were being converted to full-time permanent, but, the point was that the QA didn't want, oh, well, some of our brothers in the revolution had to die for this. We won't stand for it. That idea of I think it was like 12 people was fired, and the whole thing is no, this is the stand we're making right now. And so far it seemed, well, Activision haven't responded, but so far I feel kind of hopeful.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, so like they say, they're stopping their strike in good faith, that the strike action has only been ceased pending recognition of the union and the unused strike fund money. Of course, the strike fund was created to financially support the people who are striking, often, especially for QA staff. A lot of their compensation comes from overtime multipliers, and they're doing a hell of a lot of overtime. So, not only do they lose their overtime, they obviously aren't getting paid when they're, if they're striking. So that fund money is being stored up in case it is needed again.
Yep.
Now then, the thing is that there has been a response from Activision-Blizzard-ish. Basically, Raven Software's management announced a restructuring effort for the studio that will see QA staff embedded in each department rather than being kept as one big team. Now, what I will say is, to me, that does sound vaguely sensible. I mean, I think about trying to have the more test-oriented development, and maybe having the QA testers being closer to the developers and the people in the different departments would help, right? Maybe it would create a bit more camaraderie. I mean, as an example, I've heard tales of QA staff being kind of looked down upon, sometimes ridiculed within Blizzard Entertainment. I've seen that from a few people. That said, I also know of a few people who are in QA and seem to be happy enough, so who really knows exactly? Yeah. But obviously, if there is a really big divide, it's going to be them and us. So you could see how this would be good. But then on the other side of things,
yeah, it is also literally breaking up the department that's causing problems.
Yeah.
So I guess that's fun to think about, where it's either, okay, well, this is solving a problem, but is the positive side of this actually like a kind of an upturn on what they intended, which is the negative side of breaking down the part that's unionizing? Because obviously you're like, well, this is great. You're like, yeah, but it still completely undercuts the idea of unionizing in the entire game industry, which is one of the things we talked about when it came to this deal happening overall with Microsoft. And you go, well, Microsoft, historically they've not had, in the US at least, they've not had a good time with unions. In Europe, it's a different story entirely, but it's like, this is it thoroughly nipped in the bud, if this is what they're actually going to do, which is, unions are completely, just not going to happen now if they properly break up QA. Because then, even if like you're looking at the National Labour Relations Board, they're like, okay, well, you're looking at a QA union, but you're all in different departments. How's that going to work? That's not really going to work as a union, realistically speaking. You're going to have to unionize as engineers or as artists. And that'll kind of throw the whole thing in. Because I think that was one of the things Richard Hogue was talking about.
Yeah. Which
was the idea of, this is like a subsection of QA unionizing. So it's the categorization needs to be clear for the negotiations to be clear. And they'll factor that into their election stuff. But there's one thing I do want to say that I think is interesting. This approach, I think, seems to me like the very, very, like, almost like a return to how it used to be. Because I think the problems with QA happened because QA was seen as, they grew very quickly as this, we need game testers.
Yeah.
But it just sort of expanded and exploded as this group. Instead of being like, okay, well, how is QA literally going to be more effective? Because one of the things people always, one of the reasons QA is like one of the stepping stones into the industry was because that's how it used to be.
You learn how to implement in engines sometimes.
Yeah, so in small teams, you would join as QA, and you'd be like, oh, hey, this is a bug. And then you would go and speak to the person who, you'd help the person solve the bug, and you would learn that process. And then that's how you're like, oh, yeah, well, QA, you clearly know everything that's going on here. You understand our product. Maybe you can design the next game.
It almost reminds me of, that thing they'll often say in a ward where it's like as if the nurses kind of know more than the doctors.
Yeah.
A little bit like that.
Yeah, so that in a isolated QA department is impossible to happen. you're cut off. You're just filing bug reports, sending up the team. Sometimes there'll be communication, but in Activision's case, they were like on an entirely different floor of the building, had completely different access to things. So I think that this is interesting that if someone's embedded in QA, you become a QA, in terms of like implementation of like rendering stuff. So you're no longer just you're the QA, but you're the one who sees the seams in the level design where the textures aren't going together, and you send that report off. Now you're the person who looks for that because you're the art QA.
Yeah.
Which then means you have a clear direction to, you're art QA. So you understand all of our art really well. Okay. Do a little bit of, research in your own time on, learning implementation skills. Then next thing you know, you could actually move that ladder up.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping this is their intent.
That's yes.
I'm hoping that.
That's what I would hope.
Yeah.
I mean, a good example. So often in, say, indie game development, I'm just going to use this as one because I think it's an example of something that's often outsourced that we have in-house and very close to core development. That's music.
Yes.
So, a good example like James and Thomas, when they're in the office, are sitting beside each other. Not beside, but, basically beside each other.
Yeah.
And what that's meant that instead of being like, all right, so these are the tracks we want for the game, here's the gig, you've got 2 months, we're going to do a few revisions, done. Which is how a lot of indie game music ends up being done.
Yeah.
No, like we invested a whole bunch more in having a full-time music guy, and he's like is in engine, in Fmod, which means that when you play the game, there's times I'm like, fucking hell, this is scored like it's a Netflix miniseries. What the hell? Oh my god. And it's that deeper, tighter integration. And I think there's a lot of untapped creativity within QA people. I mean, they often get into this because they play the games for the companies that they're QAing.
Yeah,
so they're going to have good ideas. Now we move on to a final snipe. The Bobster himself. From Tracy Kennedy. Tracy is a producer on Overwatch 2. Obviously an embattled project when we think about, where? How? When? What? Where is Overwatch? To which she says, Bobby, tell everyone about the random projects for Overwatch 1 you would shove on us. The team would do overtime for them, only to be cancelled, and for months of Overwatch 2 dev to be lost. Or how almost entire teams are turning over and citing you as the reason. Don't be shy. Oh wait, that's right, you hide behind scapegoats because you're a coward, my mistake. The whole world will remember you as a greedy joke and there's nothing you can do to change that. We outlasted you. We won. Bye! Now, I do have a funny anecdote. I heard from a little birdie. Little birdie came in, just flapped in the window one day and told me that one of the reasons why Overwatch 2 is basically so late is a lot of miscommunication and bullshit. Basically in 2 things. One of them was all these Overwatch League related projects.
Oh, yeah.
That was one thing that apparently quite impacted. Because it's not like the skins were taking time. Obviously, the skins, a bit like how if you look at a show like Avatar or something, the keys and all of that are done in the studio in America, and then like all the in-betweens and stuff are, done, and the color and everything is like done in the Korean studio that they outsourced to. I think it's Studio Mir, for Korra anyway. That's kind of like the workflow, and that's kind of how it is for making Overwatch skins. They're kind of concepted out by the people at Blizzard, and then, contracting partner, finishes off the work. The Overwatch 2 skins are generally great. So it's not like the Overwatch team was sitting there just making skins instead of Overwatch 2. No. There was a bunch of special projects for Overwatch 1, as Tracy says, that I can also sort of corroborate from the things that I've heard. And then in addition, apparently the StarCraft Universe Battlefield-esque game, which I am told was a total fucking awesome, super cool thing.
Don't say that.
We should legit be very sad that it doesn't exist.
Don't tell me that.
That's one thing that I heard. I don't know. It could have been shit. Who knows? But that's what I'd sort of heard. It does make me sad. But hey, is the dispenser going to come in and bring back StarCraft? Maybe. So I think that does stand to reason what Tracy said there. Some interesting replies too. Someone said, sadly he won. He's leaving on his own terms with a fuck ton of extra cash. Tracy says monetarily sure, but he's very egotistical. People seeing his incompetence and mocking him is his worst nightmare, so these last few months have probably really pissed him off. He's infamous for suing people who expose him, but he can't possibly sue all of us now. And then this guy, Francois, I suppose, says, Random projects? I knew Overwatch League was his baby, but now you have my curiosity. Tracy, can't say specifics. Legally, workers can only talk about working conditions, and I think this counts especially when our bosses slander the rest of the world. Okay, this is where I'm going to hop in and say, yeah, I think this individual's right to be curious. From what I understand, yeah. Now, Kennedy also said interesting things, like back in August. I want to thank the Overwatch dev team's leadership for making us feel so safe. They vowed to quit if we are retaliated against, and that's the kind of selflessness and bravery, or that is, real leadership. And again, I think we'd all heard that Jeff Kaplan really tried to act as a shield. A shield of the bullshit.
Yep, for sure.
There you go.
Yeah, I think that last point on Bobby's really interesting. About, you think about the incentives of these people, like, the people who have, good money's not going to be an incentive when you have more money than you know what to do with, realistically speaking.
Yes.
So it's going to be, a lot of like hyper rich people are focused on legacy. So they care about, raising their children right. They care about the mark they'll leave on the world. They care about what belongs to them, what's in their name, all that stuff. And I think that's why, obviously, Bobby cared about Activision. It was his baby for 31 years. It was about 31 years by the time he's done, and he brought it from literally nothing to this gaming behemoth. But it must sting that his legacy is ultimately going to be, let this fester so badly that the entire company became the laughingstock of gaming, and even despite having lots of money and being very successful, still being the laughingstock culturally, and then having to sell under substantial pressure, even though he tried to make the narrative that wasn't the case, but we have heard that is largely the case. And the legacy that's left is the Microsoft come in by, and the one of the first North American AAA unions almost happening under the company's watch, and therefore under his watch. It must be very frustrating for him. If
Bobby's like this and he's egotistical, then what we could say is that one of the things people have complained about with this company that has rubbed people the wrong way is that, what is if you really try to boil down a CEO's job to the most essential thing that they do, it is efficiently allocate capital. That's it. Yeah. There's other things, but it kind of very much fundamentally boils down to that. And Bobby's probably very good at that, or at least good enough, because Activision Blizzard did end up good, doing pretty good. So Bobby, if he cares about that, hello Bobby, if he cares about that, and he wants to leave a good legacy and all of that, I'd say, Bobby, you have a lot of capital right now, a lot personally, so efficiently allocate that for good. Right now, under this system, you've been efficiently allocating that capital in order to increase the value of the company to bring in more future revenue. Go into philanthropy and truly try to use it for good. That's, I think, the thing to do. Or, go do another company, try to learn your lessons, but I think you'll certainly have issues. Yep. I know it's almost sort of cliche at this point, being like, oh, are you an unpopular, very rich person? Go into philanthropy. But hey, at least the money could go somewhere useful.
That's for sure.
Because I think we all know that I don't know that he has 16 Lambos, but Lambo 17 is not going to make him happy.
No.
If you think about what good could come into the world from the quantity of money that he has amassed, I think the only way for him to feel better about his position and leave a decent legacy is to make a hard fucking turn and start putting it to good use.
Yeah,
that's the only option as I see it.
Yeah, incredible. We've come to the ultimate conclusion that the whole thing is just a Christmas carol.
Well, I mean, it comes down to what people's views are, and sometimes you can get so caught up in this person's the enemy that okay, what are you going to do? Kill them? I mean, ultimately, if you believe in some sort of rehabilitation-focused justice, which all research seems to indicate is by far the most effective thing, and also eventually the cheapest. I mean, okay, maybe you don't get to have slave labor come out of it, but that's a discussion for an entirely different YouTube channel. Then we have to be able to give people a friggin', a path that is better, that can lead to some form of acceptance, because if that path doesn't exist, all that's going to happen is those people are going to retreat into themselves, and all those bad things that you don't like, they're going to go A, they're going to fester, B, they're going to go undercover in secret.
Yep.
That's bad shit.
Absolutely.
But hey, I mean, it's kind of all bad shit, isn't it? That's really it for the video, though. That is our big catch-up of all the Activision-Blizzard comings and goings.
Indeed.
So, there you go. Slick outro segue. Check out our Patreon. There's a really cool Griffin pin. We just got them in the office, and they're fucking awesome.
They're really nice.
So if you're subbed through January on our Patreon, those will be yours. There you go. Slick segue done. Watch this video. A box might pop up and select one for you, and I'm sure it'll be great. Bye!